I'm Dr. Monica Blied. I am so thrilled to join you all live today to talk about parenting with lupus. A little bit about myself. I am I'm getting a little message on my thing. A little bit about myself. I am a licensed clinical psychologist in Claremont, California, and a lupus warrior. I was diagnosed with lupus in 2012. It was during my second year of graduate school, so before I became a psychologist, and later on I was also diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So, super lucky to live with both. I am also a mother of three. I have a 14-year-old son, a 16-year-old stepson, and a 2-year-old baby girl. So when I was diagnosed at the time, I was a single mom of my 4-year-old. And so that was pretty difficult. I had actually been living as a single mom since my child was 6 months old after I left an abusive marriage. Since then, remarried, had another kid, have a bonus child. So the perspective that I'm coming to you all with today on parenting with lupus comes from a person who is a mother, who is a wife, who was a formerly single mother, and also living with lupus, who just so happens to have her doctorate in clinical psychology and 5 other degrees. So I am really eager to entertain any questions you all have, and I also have a little bit of an agenda today. So we will talk about how do you explain your lupus diagnosis to your children, especially depending on what age they are. If you have toddlers or young children or teenagers, that message is going to be different. And then how do you ditch your expectations and come to accept your new normal of what life is like as a person who is living with lupus and still trying to parent, and probably, if you're anything like me, probably still working and trying to manage all the pain and the fatigue and the organ functioning differences and those kinds of things that come along with this very devastating disease. And then also how to adapt to the new normal. So what does it look like playing with your kids and doing those things when you are depleted of energy? So please, as I'm going along, feel free to drop questions in the chat. Any questions are welcome, and also share your own experiences, because I am one individual, and I believe that each person lives and can contribute so much based on what they've gone through in their life. So do that. So first, discussing your diagnosis. I recommend, no matter if it's a lupus diagnosis or a mental health diagnosis or some other medical condition, applying that information or providing that information at the developmental level of your child. So if you're talking with a teenager, then you can be pretty frank and say, I'm living with lupus. Do you know what lupus is? So opening up the conversation, asking them questions, inviting them to ask you questions and explaining, this is an autoimmune disease. This is a disease where my immune system automatically sees my own healthy tissues and cells as an invader cell. So what our immune system naturally does is, if there's a foreign substance or invader inside of our body, our immune system attacks it to try to keep us healthy. And in an autoimmune condition, and in lupus in particular, my immune system is attacking my own body's healthy organs, thinking that it is a cold or flu or something like that. So I have to take these medications to be able to help control my immune system and be able to help manage the symptoms that come along with living with this disease. You can use that kind of language when you're talking to a teenager or your adult child. However, when you are with a much younger child, use language that they'll understand. So, when you get a cold, little Johnny, little Tamara, our bodies, have these little cells that, fight the bad guys. And those, good heroes inside of our body, sometimes they mess up. And it's not anything that we do that caused it. It's just something that just happens. 30% of, I'm kind of just as an FYI, you're not telling this to your 4-year-old, but 30% of lupus cases are associated with a hereditary or genetic link. And then we don't know about the other 70%. So that's just kind of an FYI. So, no fault of our own, but, those mighty warriors, sometimes they mess up and they get confused. And then instead of attacking the bad colds and flus, it actually attacks the inside of mommy's body. And that's why mommy gets tired. That's why mommy has a hard time keeping up and running after you. And if you explain it in that way, and then again, being certain to open up the opportunity for them to ask you questions. Well, mommy, does that mean you're going to die? No, probably not. In fact, modern medicine has come so far over the past 50 years that most people with lupus, they just die from whatever people normally die from because the medications and the treatments and those kinds of things. And guess what? No matter what, I'm going to be here for you and we're going to enjoy this time that we have together. So keeping it very positive, keeping it very hopeful, because the child will take on whatever temperament that you're modeling for them. So if you're modeling a temperament of anxiety and doom and gloom, guess what that child is going to take on? But if you're role modeling a temperament of hopefulness and you being a lupus warrior, going to fight against this, you going to learn as much as you can about the mind-body connection and about the gut-brain connection so that you can do wraparound care for yourself to help your lupus, not only taking medications, but then also being really mindful about the nutrition that you're putting into your body and the physical activity that you're able to do. Like when you incorporate all that, like, hey, there's hope in displaying that hopefulness for your child. Now, what happens then when, you can put on a good face, put on a good foot for your child, but then in the midnight hour, you're faced and confronted with the reality of this disease. You're faced and confronted with pain all over your body, including your joints. Maybe you're, one of the, I think 30 to 70% that get the butterfly rash. Or maybe you have sores on your skin, or, maybe you just found out that your kidney is failing, or you're near heart failure. In that midnight hour, there is grief, there's pain, sadness, devastation, all the things. I say to allow yourself to feel all those things, to experience them, with your support system who aren't your children. Because again, your children are going to just take in whatever you're doing and however you're, showing up in front of them. But lean into your the support groups that Lupus LA offers, or if you have some family members who can, show that compassion, or your faith, and taking the time to acknowledge that this does suck, and suck is like just putting it very mildly. Okay, this is something that is life changing. And not necessarily in a positive way in the beginning. It's not until we have those quiet moments, we allow ourselves to grieve, we allow ourselves to mourn, and then we keep moving forward with the, okay, so what can I do now? A lot of this, with this disease, just having it, period, is outside of our control. And anytime we feel like we have no control, that can feel very oppressive to any human, but especially a human who's dealing with, having lupus, plus trying to raise these kids, plus trying to keep the bills paid, keep the lights on, things like that, right? But when we come to the point of acceptance of, okay, this is what it is. I have lupus right now. But what can I control? I can't go, maybe you used to do 5Ks or something like that. I was never really good at it. But, whatever the case might be, you can't do what you used to be able to do pre-diagnosis or pre-having symptoms. But what can you do? This goes back to your children. Sometimes you can feel really guilty. Ooh, that mom guilt is strong. That mom guilt is real, and that mom guilt is often self-inflicted, but sometimes it's external as well. With people in their opinions telling us, you don't volunteer in your kids' class, you don't do, PTA, blah, blah, blah. Push them people to the side. Everybody got something to say, right? What I suggest that you, the way that you approach it instead is, okay, I can't, participate in my child's, soccer game because of, the UV sun exposure and because I'm just dead tired. But what can I do? What I can do, what is within my control, again, this is the part of acceptance, looking at what is within my control, is I can play a puzzle with my child. Or maybe you don't have the child that does puzzles. Maybe you're, like my kids, and we just do movies. We'll do a movie night. Or we'll cook together because our hands hurt with, arthritis and, other types of mobility issues in our joints. And so, okay, Tamara, Tasha, I want you to cut up the carrots. And, Tyrone, Jose, I want you, I don't know why you got 7 kids, but, I want you to, slice the onions, and then, we'll make it a family thing. So all of a sudden, the way that we're limited is no longer oppressive. Instead, here's an opportunity to try something different and approach life, approach this activity in a new way that's actually going to benefit your family. One thing that I've learned in the 9 years of having lupus is that although it does come with a loss of my expectations for what my life could have looked like, of the loss of expectation of what healthy me, it also came with a lot of opportunities. And that opportunity is because I confront death and sickness and loss of use of my abilities at any moment, I appreciate this moment. I appreciate and am more mindful of a beautiful sunset, of my children's laughter, of sitting and just being and attending to whatever is going on for my child at that time, my children at that time. And guess what? Most people, most parents who do not have a chronic illness, because in our culture and society, it is all about the hustle, capitalism, gaining the next thing, achieving the next thing, they may miss those moments. Because although they're present physically with their child, maybe their mind is still on that deadline, that work project, this, whatever the case might be. Now, when you live on chronic illness, it's like, look, I may not be here tomorrow. Don't tell your kids that. They'll freak out. But, I just don't know what tomorrow brings. So today, I'm going to enjoy. So let's go back to that mom guilt or dad guilt, because, 1 in 10 people diagnosed with lupus are men. What do you do with that? How do you live with that when either self-imposed, you're telling yourself, I'm not good enough, I'm ashamed that I can't do X, Y, Z activities with my child as I used to, or maybe your mother-in-law or someone else is telling you, well, why can't you all these other parents are doing XYZ. What do you do with that? I'd say, one, it's time to tune in to what is true, and it's time to tune out all the noise, all that background noise, all the people who would try to make you feel worse for something, again, that is outside of your control. Tune into self-compassion. Tune into giving yourself a ton of grace. Like, wow. Yeah, I may not be able to, run after my kid for the soccer game or, keep up a whole 30 minutes for basketball, but I can make s'mores. I can do little, I love you, I appreciate you, this is my favorite thing about you notes in their lunch. I can, and then really soak in that. Be grateful for that. I have another day on this earth to help raise this child, to help imbue within them the values of our family or of our community. What a beautiful gift that is. So as we look at self-compassion and as we look at acceptance, keeping in mind, what is within my control and what is not, I'm wondering what questions you all have. If you're not watching this live, but you're looking at it later and you're like, oh man, I've really been struggling with this. Or actually, I think I got these parts down, but I'm still wondering about that. Definitely feel free to reach out to me. You can find me at Dr. Blied on, Facebook or Instagram. I'd be happy to answer. And again, my perspective is coming as a person, as a whole person, and as a professional. One thing that was most difficult for me in this process is adapting to the new normal and accepting that it is a new normal. Because part of the grief process that I'm sure a lot of you guys are familiar with is denial. And denial shows up in very clever ways. Like, oh no, I don't have limitations on my body. I'm going to still do all the things. I'm going to be standing in front of that grocery store helping my kid do the, Girl Scout sell, and I'm going to do this and I'm going to do that, and nothing is going to change since before I started having symptoms, since before my diagnosis. But then if you don't recognize the limits of your body and respect them, your body will lay you down, lay you flat on the ground, flat in your bed for the next 2-3 days, and you're like, oh shoot. Then the guilt and shame comes up, and this never-ending cycle. Interrupting that is to stop and accept it, like, okay, yes, I cannot do all the things that I needed to do, but I'm repeating this because I cannot emphasize it enough. These are the things that I can do. And for the things that I can't do, but I would still like to, maybe you reach out to your support system. Perhaps there's a family member or a close friend who can, take your kid hiking up the mountain while you just chilling at the bottom, staying hydrated. Or someone within the support group that you've joined through Lupus LA. Get creative. Get creative with, who is within your circle, who can be relied upon for different things. Not everything is for everyone. Some people you can, do physical sports activities with your children. Some people, you don't want to leave them alone with your children. Some people can just, be there to talk to you on the phone when you need to cry, just exasperated, like, oh, I'm having a really rough day. I'm having a bad pain day. Some people, maybe they can come and give you a break. so that you can take a long bubble bath, or that so you can, go to a coffee shop or a bookstore and just read a book. Keep in mind that although you are a parent, you are still a person. So you must take care of yourself first so that you can better show up for your children. That means getting breaks from them rugrats. As much as you love them, you will be a better mom, a better dad, when you also have time to refill and rejuvenate yourself, making sure that you're getting enough rest at night. Getting enough rest also has positive impacts on the gut-brain connection, meaning that it's going to help with a healthy gut, healthy microbiome, enough of the bacteria in your gut that actually helps to produce serotonin, which is one of the neurochemicals, the brain chemicals that are associated with depression and anxiety. You can help to treat some of those mood symptoms with a healthy gut, which is your nutrition, getting physical activity, getting enough sleep, and healthy gut brain also lowers levels of inflammation. Lower level of inflammation, improved immune functioning. Lower levels of symptoms with lupus, less flare-ups. Wow. These, again, are the things that are within our control. There are so many things outside of our control. But once we start to identify, first of all, accept the things that we can't change, and then start to identify, okay, these are the things I can do. I can, again, watch a movie with my child. I can do a puzzle. I can do coloring. And I may be laying in the bed the whole time. But guess what? All kids, come on, get up in mama's bed. This is where we're doing it. Because I need to be comfortable, and I also need to take care of myself so that I can continue to show up for you. And that's going to contribute to longevity. That's going to contribute to your joy. And that's going to contribute to that whole family atmosphere of being able to just keep pushing on for another day. And who knows, that next day you may meet somebody who has a different perspective that's really helpful for you, or a different tip or technique or strategy. So maybe this person is like, oh, well, if you do, chair yoga exercises or range of motion, stretches every day, then that helps my mood and energy, where I actually have energy to, cook dinner 2 or 3 times a week, or whatever the case might be. Lean in, get support, accept what you cannot change, and what you can do, do it, and do it well. Thank you guys so much for joining me. I don't see any questions right now, but again, if you have any that come up later, please do feel free to reach out. I'd be more than happy to connect. Thank you, and take really good care. You're not alone in this.